Hello, guys, girls, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls. Ladies and gentlemen, new laws came in Germany. A new big tobacco. Peter's Hatch warned plots of whatever that's supposed to mean. I don't know if it's on about the cannabis legalisation in Germany. It could be on about something else, but I'll have to see what it says in GB News.
Welcome back to Neil Oliver live with me, Bev Turner, this evening. So, new laws in Germany came into force this week which legalised personal possession of cannabis. Since the 1st of April, adults are allowed to carry up to 25 grams of dried cannabis on them and cultivate up to 3 marijuana plants at home. So should Britain follow suit? To discuss that, I'm joined by Professor Mike Barnes, a consultant neurologist, and Mail on Sunday columnist Peter Hitchens. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me. Peter, let me start with you here in the studio. This is Germany seeing sense maybe over something which is effectively decriminalised.
24
places anyway now.
Well, it isn't everywhere, and I don't see why it's sense. If this were Germany saying, right, let's abandon all attempts of the past 70 years to get rid of cigarettes and tobacco, everyone would think they were mad. Similarly, a country which now proposes to legalize a drug which is increasingly correlated with severe incurable mental illness, and to some extent also increasingly correlated with violent crime, doesn't seem to me to be sense at all. It seems to me to be sheer craziness. The arguments for it are extraordinarily weak, and the alleged good that it will do, we know from practical experience it will not do. The advocates of this sort of legalization always claim that it will in some way enable them to control the market, to regulate, to decide the levels of dose, and to make huge amounts of money out of tax. But several jurisdictions have already tried this. Colorado and California, notably in the United States, and the whole of Canada. And the result has been that the illegal market has continued to flourish alongside the legal one. I think the latest figures show 33%.
Right.
That's Canadian government figures. 33% of the trade is still in illicit hands.
Flying book going for space. Flying book going in my face. Flying book 24 for 2024.
If you go down this road,
Open the door, not 25 yet. Page book.
It's almost impossible to undo the mistake.
Professor Mike Barnes, then, what might Germany's logic be to taking this action over cannabis?
Well, I think the logic is overwhelming, really, and Peter will not be surprised to know that I fundamentally disagree with him. First of all, you can make the cannabis safer than it is at the moment. You will get rid of impurities to start with. You'll make
stop
sure
crime.
that it's a safe drug to take in safe places. You will reduce the amount of mental illness that's associated with it, and there is some. I don't disagree with that at all. But you'll be able to control that by controlling the level of THC. And the risk of mental illness, I have to say, is very small indeed. If we look at a study in the UK called Drug Science, that's been looking at now nearly 5,000 people with medically prescribed cannabis, there's been not one case of psychopathy in those people. The recent study that showed you have to stop 10,000 men and 29,000 women from smoking cannabis to prevent one episode of psychosis. So yes, it's a risk, but with proper control, it's a very, very small risk. And I have to fundamentally with Peter to say that it does not cause violence. There's absolutely no evidence of that whatsoever.
Peter, it's a very convincing case that Mike Barnes puts forward there, but we know we've got a mental health epidemic, particularly in this country with teens at the moment. Does anybody really know how much of that has been exacerbated by social cannabis use?
Well, nobody knows because the research isn't done. It's not done by the state, it's not done by the universities. There's nobody in this country with any interest in doing research. All the big money is on the side of legalization. There's enormous amounts of money to be made in the legalization of this drug. And a huge campaign is underway at the moment, also internationally, to get rid of the treaties, the United Nations treaties dating back to the 1930s, which actually make it illegal in the first place. And once they can do that, then the whole of the United States, for instance, and this country, which are members of the United Nations Security Council, could actually legalize openly, but they can't do it at the moment. And the reason for this relentless campaign is because of the billions that can be made out of it. This is the next big tobacco. And I have to challenge some things which Mike Barnes has just said. The evidence of the dangers of marijuana First of all, comes from the fact that it's used very widely, particularly in schools at the moment. I know of one case, and I direct everybody who's complacent about this to the extraordinary book by Patrick Cockburn and his son Henry, called Henry's Demons. Henry attended a very nice Canterbury grammar school in the Garden of England in Kent, and at the age of 11 was introduced to marijuana, and very regrettably he became severely mentally ill as a result. And I don't think there's really very much question in anybody's mind who was involved. Well,
11 is young.
it is young, you're right, but that is where an awful lot of the current market is. In schools at the ages as low as 11. The other thing is, what is generally true about legalization or decriminalization of the drug is it doesn't hugely increase the number of people who take it. What it does do is it increases the number of people who take it regularly and the amount that they take. And I think there's a lot of complacency about this. I did some research a few years ago for my book on the subject about the complacent rubbish which was emitted by big tobacco, about the dangers of lung cancer from that in the 1950s and early 60s. And the same sort of bilge, I'm afraid, was talked about how there's really nothing to worry about. On the issue of violence, what I will say is that again, there's no study. I've often tried to get the police to tell me about whether there's any evidence of drug use of violent criminals, and they won't even talk about it because the police themselves have given up enforcing the law. There is one very closely studied subset of violent crime, that is mass killings, either by terrorists in Europe or school shootings in the United States, almost invariably.
Rock it down in space.
Mike, just respond to that, please. Mike Barnes.
0. Seriously? Yes, absolutely 0.
Yeah, well, I think, Peter, unfortunately, it collapses together people with already existing mental illness who do around do mass killings and such like, one can't doubt that, and they happen to have cannabis. There's no direct link, there is no, full stop, direct link between cannabis and violence. I'm not going to say people who are violent or mentally ill don't take cannabis. Of course, some do. Some drink alcohol. Some take cornflakes in the morning. But there's not a direct link between cannabis and violence.
I have to.
I should say.
I have to treat Mike Barnes as a serious person. When he says nobody gets mental illness or indulges in violent crime as a result of eating cornflakes, he's not being a serious person. We know perfectly well. You know perfectly well. You're well equipped to know it. That marijuana is a major psychotropic drug with huge effects on the human brain, and cornflakes are not. It's a silly thing to say, and it demeans you to say it. You also know perfectly well that the reason why there is so little evidence is because there's so little study. And as I said just now and made it perfectly clear, there is so little study because who has any interest in there being such a study? There is a huge industry hoping to make enormous amounts of money. The last thing it needs is lots of definitive studies linking marijuana with lifelong incurable mental illness, and other studies linking it with violent crime. Go to the website Attack Us Smoke Cannabis and see just how many crimes are reported in the local newspapers of this country week after week after week in which the violent person is a long-term user of marijuana, and tell me there's no connection.
Go on, Mike. Respond to Peter.
I'm really sorry to create the point. There is no direct connection between cannabis and violence. I'm not saying people who are violent have not taken cannabis. I'm not saying cannabis. I'm not complacent about it at all. There is mental health issues with long-term cannabis use, but properly controlled, that risk is small. It's very small. And honestly, I don't know of any industry that's run better by criminals. Why, if there is those issues there, and there are those issues there, I think they're overinflated, but there are those issues there. For heaven's sake, let's run it properly, let's regulate it properly. If there's tax income to be had, let the government have that tax income rather than the criminal fraternity. If there's jobs to be had, as about 100,000 jobs in the UK, let the proper economic market have those jobs rather than the criminal fraternity. So I think, yes, there are risks to it. I'm not being complacent at all. But those risks are minimal, and I think it's better to control and contain those risks by making it legal.
And therefore, people use it for what, Mike? And what would people use cannabis for then, even if it was legalised or decriminalised?
Well, I do want to make quickly, if I may, it may surprise people that I'm not in favour of immediate legalisation of cannabis, because we've got to get the medical market right first. And I was a helpful part of getting the medical law changed back in 2018. And now there's 37,000 people prescribed medical cannabis with a great deal of benefit for chronic pain, chronic anxiety, and of course the young children with epilepsy. But we haven't got that right yet. There's about 1.8 million medical users of cannabis in this country, and we've got 37,000 prescribed. So we've got a long way to go before we get the medical side right. And that's what I want before we get the legal market.
So, Peter, would you be in favour of getting the medical market for cannabis in better shape and more readily available?
I think it's wholly irrelevant. It may be that marijuana can be used as a medicine. I think the jury is ultimately out on it. I know the Home Office has been very good about letting experiments take place, and indeed there are a couple of THC-based medicines available under certain strict prescription in this country. Whether they work or not, I don't know. I do know that the principal campaigner for cannabis legalization in the United States, Keith Stroop of Normal, said in 1979, "We will use medical marijuana as a red herring to give pot a good name." And I think that's fundamentally what the medical marijuana issue is about. We should stick to the issue of whether it should be legalized for recreational use, which is what is really a question here. And when Mike Barnes says, why not let the government get taxes, why not put it in the hands of business? What legalized marijuana means is big marijuana. It means a lot more of it. It means advertising. The Proposition 64, which was the model for marijuana legalization in California and the United States, was specific about demanding the freedom to advertise. Remember how many years it took to prevent big tobacco from advertising in this country. What you're basically proposing is the creation of a new big tobacco with a very, very dangerous drug on widespread sale by big organizations, with the government becoming committed to its continued sale because of its tax revenue. Basically a deeply immoral plan because of the huge known dangers of this drug and other dangers which will certainly become known if you're successful.
Okay, well, thank you, gentlemen. Mike
Well,
Barnes, who's
I
giving
don't know what to
pot
think
a good
about
name, as Peter said, and trying very hard with the medicinal community at the very least, and Peter Hitchens, who clearly very much... I
suppose it is what it is.
Thank you so much.
We just have to wait and see if they eventually let you have the drug in the UK or they don't. Or the law may still be the same, fortunately. But people would like that to happen if it would change or be different. Yeah, so that's that video done. I mean, I'm going to run out of room again on this phone, I think, in a minute.
Come back to Neil Oliver.
So there's so much things I can do in a pre-recorded video. It's going to be premium in a bit. Yeah. Trying to think what else I can do. Because I know this phone's going to run out of memory again. There's only so much memory it's got. Let's have a look here. Try and find something. Will they ever illegalize cannabis in the UK? Legalizing cannabis in the UK so you can smoke it. I don't think they're going to, though. It'd help a lot of people out. You can see like a lot of old videos talking about it, but nothing recent. Apart from the video we just watched, obviously, about Germany.
Smoking office, and then some rather more humanitarian.
There's nothing on that. Trying to find another video, but it's just taking a while.
This security door is the same type used to protect Germany's gold reserve. But at this facility, it's securing green gold. Here they grow cannabis for medical use.
Right now it's not psychoactive, so if you would just eat the plant right now, you would not get high.
But a new law decriminalising possession and home cultivation means they soon hope to expand their business.
Now we are allowed to grow more cannabis, which we can then also sell directly to the pharmacies. The second point, which is very important to the patients, is that cannabis now is declassified. It's not a narcotic product anymore, which means that any doctor can now prescribe it.
From the 1st of April, adults will be allowed to possess up to 25 grams of the drug in public, hold 50 grams at home, and grow a maximum of 3 plants.
Here we show the whole plant. There's seeds in here because this is for seed production.
From July, private cannabis clubs can supply 500 members on a limited basis. Stefan is one of those who's been campaigning for legalisation. A director of Berlin's Hemp Museum, he celebrates all things marijuana and sees the new law as a partial victory.
It's not the law we expected, but it's a good law because we will have 180,000 less prosecutions in the next year. There will be a big relief for cannabis consumers if you can have
drop the crime
of cannabis with you without being in fear of arrest, in fear of problems with the police.
But there are restrictions. For example, you have to be over 18 and can't smoke around areas including playgrounds and sports centres. The potency will also be limited. Getting this across the line has been quite the battle. The government claims it will help curb the black market and ensure a safe quality product. But opponents say it ignores the health issues and will overburden the police and justice system. And polls show the public is also divided, with a slim majority against it.
I think alcohol is the same dangerous as cannabis, and so I think it's okay.
Now they can be sure it's good quality, and at least the state will get the taxes from that.
I think it's not because of the youth, it's dangerous.
But this is now a growing industry.
You just have to see how that goes, I think.
Successful.
If it's what they want to do, it's, people have a choice, don't they? Germany, and this is 6 days ago.
In Germany will soon be allowed to carry, grow and store cannabis after the government decriminalised recreational use of the drug. It follows Malta and Luxembourg, who legalised recreational use of the drug in recent years.
This security door is the same type used to protect Germany's gold reserve.
I think we've already seen this one, haven't we?
But at this facility, it's secure.
I mean, what we didn't see is... Oh, it's showing you the same one, isn't it? Will the UK go the same way? Some will probably think probably not.
He's smoking.
Legalising cannabis.
I mean, this is 1 year ago, SadiqKhan talking about it, but they've not done it since.
Legalising cannabis in the time. Sadiq is in the States.
All dressed up. Yeah, so ironically wearing a giant baseball top. And if you know how...
This is not 2024 that we're talking about this, we're talking about 1 year ago.
Anyway, so
Video,
London,
this one.
I'm not quite sure what he's doing out in LA.
He's trying to drum up tourism because we're down on American visitors,
right,
and business.
Do we have to make weed legal then to get the American?
Well, this is the thing. Any case, I mean, Sadiq Khan has set up a commission that will look into whether we should make cannabis legal, decriminalise cannabis, and he's doing this on a trip to a marijuana farm. And he's pointed out that statistics show that 4,561 people died of drug-related poisoning in the world. The highest since records become, and in America, where 11 states have decriminalised or made cannabis legal, it has the crime figures and the deaths from drugs have gone down. So he has got a point. However, the whole drug debate, I mean, I don't know what the answer is. I'm not sure anyone does. But I mean, someone in my family got involved in cannabis, a very strong cannabis, and now has severe psychosis issues. So from a personal point of view, I have huge issues with the story. However, I do recognise that, you know, alcohol is completely, you know, legal, and certain people cannot control alcohol either. So I see both sides of this story, and it's interesting that this has opened the debate, and we are, you know, SadiqKhan now wants to look into it, and you know, there are some areas in this country as well where the police really don't take any action if you are caught carrying a small personal
Well, I have
cannabis.
to say, when you walk around, certainly if you walk around London, I'm sure it applies to other towns and cities as well, you just smell it everywhere.
Oh, well, you do.
I mean, and no one bats an eyelid now. I think it's awful.
The prevalence is more, and you wonder what it would be like if it was decriminalised. I mean, there are some
There we
people
go then.
who
Will
say
they ever
tobacco
make it
would be illegal
for people so they can smoke it? But it's taking such a long time to do it. It probably annoys a lot of people. I mean, you got Jamaica are worried. This was like 4 years ago. I think probably now it's probably changed, and they let you smoke it there. We'll do it anyway.
Yeah, but some people wonder why people use herb, but herb is a very spiritual plant, you know.
Believe it or not, until recently, doing this could get you mandatory jail time in Jamaica. That all changed in 2015.
2024 now, but
when a new ganja law
history
decriminalized
time.
it and made it legal for medical use. And now there's a new question. Who's gonna profit off all this?
This area is part of what is considered to be orange hill.
Ross IOV is on the government board that handles licensing for weed sales. And he's worried that at the rate things are going now, foreigners are going to run the market. When you're looking at the state of ganja in Jamaica right now, what do you see?
But I see the continuation of slavery and colonialism from an economic point of view, yeah. Because most of the companies that come in inside here are really non-black business, right? So my thing is for our people to own, right? To own a part of this industry.
Do you think this is something realistic that you can accomplish?
Yeah, right? But we have to be prepared to fight for it.
Waba Clayton can't legally sell any of this weed. He wants to go legit, so he applied for a license months ago. But the board hasn't approved it yet.
I want to smell this one now. This one is a nice sativa called illegalin. Like touch it. Smell it.
Yeah. There you go. How's the crop looking right now?
Yeah, man.
Yeah?
Great.
Ross has been working with farmers like Waba and trying to push the rest of the board to make the process easier. But even if Waba does get approved, it won't be cheap. It starts at $2,000 for a license to grow weed and $10,000 to transport it. That's more than the average Jamaican's annual salary. If you get that letter from the government that says, hey, we're rejecting your application, you can't sell, what are you gonna do?
Well, I would have to stop because I'm a business person, you know. I have to go do something else. But what about the other person who can't? Ganja is not just junk. It's a spiritual thing that's set here to help poorer class people. Without ganja, I don't know what this community would be. Larry OG, man. A special weed, man.
So far, the government has only granted 30 licenses. One of them went to a Canadian company called Global Canna Labs, which is run by this guy.
Yeah, man, cocoa tea, one love.
Paul Levine is the president of Global Canna Labs, which runs one of the largest legal cannabis farms on the island. They've got a 6-acre farm right next to a big tourist hub, and they're still expanding. How does a young dude from Newfoundland come down here to Jamaica and say, all right, I'm gonna start a ganja business?
It's a pretty wild story. My dad's family, a lot of his brothers, they were down in the Caribbean doing a lot of things with like fiber optics and stuff. So I always looked at, you know, as you know, this could be my big business that I start down here. And I love cannabis. I love consuming it.
To protect the industry from being completely owned by foreigners, Jamaican law requires Paul to share 51% of his profits with a Jamaican business partner. Paul says he's happy to play by the rules.
Well, I think for myself personally, like I've sort of embedded myself into the lifestyle and culture here, and I live here. So it's not like I'm saying I'm coming in from, a foreign country, putting money in, taking it, sucking everything out and leaving today. It's literally, I'm here to stay.
If there's anyone who can keep Jamaican weed Jamaican, it's probably Bali Vaswani.
Did we go to the dab and see a dab actually done? We didn't see anybody do it, no.
So I think we should see a dab.
Let's do it.
Bali Vaswani is a third-generation Jamaican. He comes from a family of successful bankers, and he got the first license to sell in Jamaica.
This would be a great feeling. If I didn't have work to do, this is where I would be.
Bali studied the weed industry in Denver, Colorado, and it shows. His store carries every weed product imaginable, and he's his own supplier. He grows the weed on a 17-acre farm next door. But he's not ruling out taking foreign investment.
I think it should be Jamaica owned if it's in Jamaica, but I have no objection to having good partners built into it. But I mean,
good partners in terms of foreign partners.
Yeah, foreign partners for sure. I think there's a lot of expertise out there.
Is there room for the small independent farmer who, until this point, has had difficulty getting those licenses?
They need to get organized now, because the industry is moving every single day, and there's always a place for them. In my model, I fit them into my model.
So this is kind of all the little guys right now are kind of hoping that you don't sell out.
If I partner with a big firm, is that a sellout? I don't see that as a sellout. I see that as making a strong move to make sure that I can continue to grow the vision and make sure that I can buy all the weed from the small farmers.
So basically you're talking about right now your brand being the Jamaican ganja brand.
100%.